What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. We are live here on a Thursday, live a little earlier than normal. We've got some inclement weather down here, so looking to leave a little early before it gets dark later tonight. So appreciate everybody for adjusting and joining us right now. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate that. And we got a lot to discuss. We got the latest on the Bears coaching search. We'll take some of your questions and explore a juicy trade idea that's been floated out there as well. Shout out your city. We got producer Cullen in the building. By the way, for those wondering, that means we will not be doing Notre Dame Penn State tonight on 4 Verts, but our main Chat Sports YouTube channel will still have a crew live for that. So if you want to join them, feel free to do so. We are, Cullen, going to go live here on Bears and on 4 Verts, little simulcast Sunday, Eagles-Packers. So we can cheer against the Packers together on Sunday afternoon.
FGB as always. Get those FGBs in the chat. Yeah, a little disappointed. Obviously, weather we obviously couldn't control. We thought it was best given the circumstances to not call that game. But yeah, I'm excited because look, NFL playoff football and seeing the Packers get knocked out in the first round is going to be a pleasure to see. So yeah, if you guys want to come through, you know where to find us.
We'll be here Saturday or Sunday afternoon. LaCour says Cullen doesn't sound correctly. He's a little under the weather.
A little under the weather.
He's battling. He's battling here.
I am living off of Dayquil and NyQuil the past 24 hours, so I'll do my best, but I appreciate y'all bearing with me here.
Don't feel the need to talk too much this show, Cullen, if you need to save that voice. We got Jeff in San Antonio, Robert in Green Bay, Josh in Kingston, Alabama. Let's see. We got Brighton in the UK. What's up, Tom? Rockford, Illinois. From Gordon. Appreciate you guys. Robert Schwartz in Green Bay. He's in enemy territory. We got Cullen looks like my mom's boyfriend. Interesting.
Mom's got good taste.
Yes. Great response. Jason in Davenport. Ipum in Redlands. We got William in Kansas City. Paul in Blackpool, UK. And we should be good, Jeff. Appreciate you. We're taking the precautions we need to. All right, we are sponsored by Game Time. If you're looking to go to a Bulls game, a Blackhawks, a college football playoff game, an NFL playoff game, a concert, a comedy show, use Game Time. Get your tickets through the Game Time app and use their feature Game Time Picks, which will help you get the best deals on the best seats, filter out the fluff of thousands of tickets, narrow down that search for you. Should make it a lot easier. When you download the app today and create an account, use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase only. Terms do apply. Views from the seats, super deals, which are the best bang for your buck on certain seats within the stadium, and a whole lot more. I've used Game Time on several occasions and at the last minute, literally hour before some events. I've gotten tickets with Game Time, no problem whatsoever. Code ChatSports gets you $20 off your first purchase only. Terms apply. We are also sponsored by Rocket Money, a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel any subscriptions you no longer want. You can stay on top of your budgets. You can even negotiate to lower bills by up to 20%. Upload those bills to the Rocket Money app, and they will look to find a better price for you. If you use Rocket Money's features to its fullest extent, you can save up to $740 per year. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Download Rocket Money today, rocketmoney.com/Bears now. It's rocketmoney.com/Bears now. Both those links in the live chat. Check out Rocket Money today. All right, what is your gut feeling? Who will be the next Bears head coach?
Yeah, get those answers down.
Do you have an early gut feeling, Colin, or is it too early?
It feels a little too early. I'm actually going to check the odds here in a second, but we did get a super chat in from O'Geezer that I want to throw up on screen. Shout out to O'Geezer. What's known about Todd Monken with a Ginty or Scadaboo offense? Could be a really tough offense.
I saw Bill Zimmerman, who's somewhat tapped in when it comes to the Bears. He said he's been talking to people in NFL circles about the Bears coaching candidate list, and that the most positive feedback he's gotten across the board among all their candidates has been from Todd Monken. I think he said something along the lines of, with his experience and his coaching style, he is kind of an offensive-minded Pete Carroll type, which that's pretty interesting. He's 58 years old. He calls plays from the booth. I don't know. I'm intrigued by Monken. I'll say this. Georgia, I don't think them taking a step back the last 2 years without him is a coincidence. And I don't think Lamar having the best passing year of his career by far this year with Monken is a coincidence either. I think he's done a really good job of taking Lamar's game to even another level. So he's an interesting name. I think he's kind of – is he kind of just under the radar, like
a little bit
within this Bears search of like maybe we should be considering him more?
Yeah, I actually, so while you were answering that, I pulled up the odds for the Bears' next full-time head coach. Top 6, Ben Johnson, number 1. Cliff Kingsbury still rings at number 2.
Okay.
Aaron Glenn, number 3. Brian Flores and Pete Carroll. Actually, all 3 of those are tied for number 3, with Mike Vrabel at number 6 at plus 900.
Yeah, I think like Braves is probably higher on the Bears list, but I think they're probably just saying they assume the Patriots are going to hire him. So, yeah, we'll see.
For any of you John Gruden believers, you get plus 5,000 odds if you want to bet that way.
Yeah, I mean, has a single team requested him? I haven't seen so.
Not that I've seen, no.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. Kevin Warren, don't you have interviews to do? I seriously think Rex Ryan gets the Jets job. I think he's got a shot. I think he's in the mix there. I think the Jets will probably look at this like if we don't get, like if they can't get a Vrabel who they had a good interview with, they don't even have an interview set up with Ben Johnson. Like I think Rex is probably like okay, if we don't get one of our top guys, we'll just hire Rex. That's kind of what it feels like to me. So I could see it. It would give him that fan base some juice. I don't know if he can win at this stage in his career, but it would be fascinating. That's for sure.
Yeah, it would be. I think it's just it seems like almost so
seems
just
like comedy
Jets.
almost.
Yeah, but it seems so Jets like that it would happen. So
last playoff win was with Rex Ryan.
That's
Chad
true.
Speaker, Chapman would actually be a great coach. Who is Chapman?
That's a great question.
Who is Chapman, Chad?
Chapman.
Anybody know who he's talking about?
I'm drawing a blank. I can't even think of a funny response to that.
I feel like I'm missing something here. Yeah. Help me out here, Chad.
Maybe a type.
Does he mean Campbell?
Maybe.
Matt Campbell?
Maybe. Yeah, Damien says Campbell. Maybe. I don't know. Feels like the boat kind of just passed and went.
Aroldis Chapman. Yes.
There you go.
Just don't let his mom around him.
He says Campbell.
I mean, I just think it's too risky. He's been at the college level exclusively. He had the Lions job 4 years ago, turned him down. They end up with Dan Campbell. Kind of goes to show sometimes you got to get lucky. Carson Beck hit the portal. Yeah, I think he's going to go to Miami. That's where his girlfriend's at, and they need a quarterback.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Interesting thought, like the 3 teams that they named, Miami, I believe it was Ohio State and Texas Tech.
Interesting.
Shout out to the Red Raiders.
Yeah, Lubbock, Texas. Do you trust the Bears to get this hire right? The live poll says 66%. No. Is this the time they get it right? I hope so.
Yeah, for Bowles' sake, I hope he does. It's just going to be kind of really interesting. Kind of how, again, the narrowing down process, because we're up to, 16 on the list?
16.
Yeah. So
3 interviews complete, 2 more coming today, probably 1 taking place right now.
I'm curious to what they narrow it down to after this. It's going to be my kind of big thing.
Yeah. John T., please no DEI hire. I don't even know who that would be, but, I mean, if you're thinking about minority coaches, who's the top minority coaching candidate? Brian Flores?
Flores would immediately comes to mind.
I mean, I don't think that would be a DEI
Aaron
hire.
Glenn.
The league doesn't want Flores because
true.
he's suing the league. So
yeah.
Aaron Glenn as well. Just hire the best guy.
It doesn't matter.
Vrabel, Johnson. I want one of those guys. Get someone in here. DeJounte Perkins. Monken is also from the Chicago area. That's true. I keep forgetting that. And grew up a Bears fan. If there's one team he'd be willing to leave Baltimore job for, it's us. I mean, I think he would take any head coaching job because at this stage in his career, he's probably only going to get one shot at it. So, Monken's an interesting one. I'm probably going to have to think about him more. Ravens Steelers on Saturday night. keep an eye on that game.
Yeah, I think age is really kind of the big deterrent with him.
Yeah, 58 for a first-time head coach.
It's interesting.
It's not old, but it's not young either.
No.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The Shy. Edward, what is up with the 2025 schedule? We are going to get killed. I predict 6 wins. I've retired from the schedule is difficult thing because remember last year, coming into the year based on opponent win percentage from the year before, the Bears had the second easiest schedule. Well, how it all played out ended up being the second hardest. So you just don't know. Sure, like on paper it looks tough, but it's the NFL. All games are tough. Like if the Bears are a good team, they'll win some games. If they're not, they won't. So you just got to see how it plays out.
100%. I mean, it's always kind of, funny looking back because, you said it today. They went from second easiest to second hardest. And, those, they're kind of easy things to, get, tricked into, especially when we get closer to the beginning of the season. But like you said, there's so many factors that go into each given week. Like, you may look at your stretch if you're the Bears and think, oh, maybe, Seattle, San Francisco or something's like an easier game. And then you get there and it's like, oh, shoot, and the division and all that. So, yeah, you can never really predict these things until you actually get to the actual game itself.
Yeah, gotta see how it plays out. There's so much. There's so many surprises year in, year out in the NFL as well. So, just is what it is. All right, hit that like button. We got a lot to get into here on today's show. We got only 49 likes, almost 400 people watching. Need more likes here on today's show, and we'll shortly dive into today's live segments. Kevin Warren, Vrabel head coach, Lane Kiffin OC, Anarumo DC. Well, Lane Kiffin's making like $9 million to be Ole Miss's head coach, so I don't think he's going to jump to be an NFL coordinator for $2 million or whatever it is. So don't think that's happening. Anarumo, though, he would be very high on my list to be defensive coordinator, if regardless of who they hire, but especially if they hire an offensive guy. So, which, by the way, I put out a video earlier this morning about defensive coordinator candidates if the Bears hire an offensive guy. So once this live show ends, go check that out. Broke down 5 candidates to be at DC. Jeff, again. So just my gut feeling, it's that the Bears' new head coach is going to be one of the handful of 2024 bad coaches. Hope we can find the right person. That's the hope. Don't want it to be a bad coach, that's for sure. They got to get this right, man. Got to get this right. It's not an option. Paleo. Beating the Packers saved my sanity, dude. A little nervous about the head coach search. Why only Zoom interviews? Todd Monken kind of growing on me as well. Well, you can only do virtual until a certain date for most candidates. However, Vrabel is one that could have come into your building, so I don't know why they didn't do that. Pete Carroll in the same boat, so is it the end of the world? No, but I do think it's kind of bizarre that they wouldn't take advantage of that, but seems like they're going to go virtual first round, and then when they get to their finalists, they will bring them into the building at that point. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, coming up here on Chicago Bears Now Live, we got the latest on the coaching search, some news and notes there. We'll take some questions, hashtag Bears or Super Chat, to get your questions answered here on the show. And there's been some Mike Tomlin buzz out there. Could the Bears trade for Mike Tomlin if the Steelers are knocked out in the first round of the playoffs? Could Pittsburgh look to split and potentially put Tomlin in a situation where they could trade him? We will talk about all that coming up next here on Chicago Bears Now, but we'll start with the latest nuggets on the coaching search. I'm Harrison Graham. This is Chicago Bears Now. Let's dive into the latest on the Bears coaching search. The latest on Ben Johnson coming from ESPN is that if Mike Vrabel were to land with the New England Patriots, it would likely come down to the Bears and Jags for Johnson's services. Here's Dan Graziano of ESPN. He said, I think he'll have interest in that job, talking about the Bears. Jobs with the good young quarterback are the most likely for Johnson, though maybe Chicago and Jacksonville more so than the Patriots because they might be locked in on Vrabel. Now, as far as Ben Johnson's interview schedule goes, Adam Schefter actually just tweeted an update on this. Let me see if this is the same. I do know the Bears interview is on Saturday morning. So it's Patriots Friday morning, Raiders Friday night, Bears Saturday morning, Jags Saturday night. So that is correct. Just if you flipped Patriots Raiders in terms of AM PM. But he's got 4 interviews over the next 2 days starting tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. I think for Jacksonville, if this report is correct, it would come down to the Bears and Jags. I think Trent Baalke's role would have to change. If Trent Baalke is the GM in Jacksonville and has full player personnel control, I find it hard to believe that Ben Johnson would take that job considering how selective he's been. Now, if Johnson would have more say in player personnel or if they move Baalke into more of like a senior advisory role or something like that and Johnson had say on who the GM was, that could change the calculus. But if Vrabel goes to New England, I think given the Trent Baalke factor, the Bears would have the favorite over the Jags in terms of the chances of landing Ben Johnson. More from Graziano here as he says, I expect Johnson will take a head coaching job this cycle. He has been squirrely about it the last couple of years, but people I talk to close to the situation believes he's in a different frame of mind and expect him to embrace the opportunity if it's offered, which I believe it will be. And yeah, certainly between these 4 gigs interviewing him, you would feel very strongly that at least one, if not multiple, will offer him to be their head coach. So what is your confidence level in the Bears landing Ben Johnson if that's who they want? Scale from 1 to 10, 1 being you're not confident at all, 10 being very confident. I'd probably be right in the middle at like a 5. I'm mildly optimistic, but I got to see this Vrabel domino drop first. Kind of feels like he's the first domino to drop. Is he going to end up in New England? Do the Raiders get in the mix after firing Tom Telesco? Maybe Tom Brady, kind of throws a Hail Mary at Vrabel like, hey, we fired our GM and coach. We want you to run the show here. You can bring in whoever you want. Going to be interesting, no question about it. Scale from 1 to 10. How confident are you in the Bears' chances of landing Johnson? All right, let's get to the latest on Thomas Brown, who, of course, was the interim head coach to finish the season for Chicago. The Seahawks are going to bring him in to interview for their vacant OC gig. They, of course, fired Ryan Grubb after his first season as Seattle's offensive coordinator. I think something to remember here is that Thomas Brown was having to run Shane Waldron's playbook in offense. He was straight up asked after the season, like, hey, if you got to work with Caleb and got to stay here, how different would the offense look? And he said very different. So I think it's pretty clear that conceptually wise, playbook wise, you would see a lot of different wrinkles and a lot of different scheme if he, regardless of where he goes, whether it's staying in Chicago in some role or going to Seattle or somewhere else. Now, he is expected to interview for the Bears head coaching gig at some point. Have not seen a confirmed date on that. Maybe it already happened and it just hasn't been announced. Who knows? But that is something that is expected. Ryan Pohl said himself that they will interview Thomas Brown. So keep an eye on that. I think his interview with Seattle is on Saturday. So stay tuned as they look to replace Ryan Grubb. Look, regardless of what happens, I don't think he'll be the head coach here next year. I think there's a small scenario he's back on staff, depending on how things play out for him with his opportunities and whoever the Bears' next head coach is. But I wish him well no matter what. I mean, the fact that this guy went from pass game coordinator to OC to head coach, was running an offense that isn't his offense. They beat the Packers on the way out. I mean, I think he did the best he could with what he was given. I don't think he's quite ready to be a head coach, but I think there are qualities there that people clearly like, and I certainly like as well. So I wish TB well, regardless of where he ends up. Okay, let's talk about our sponsor, Rocket Money, a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel subscriptions that you no longer want. What it will do is list out your subscriptions once you sync up your bank account with Rocket Money at rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. All on one screen, you'll see every subscription you're paying for. Maybe you're paying $12 for this, $18 for that, $9 for that. Most Americans think they're spending $62 per month on subscriptions. The reality is that number is closer to $300. Don't believe me? Sign up with Rocket Money and take a look for yourself. I've canceled several subscriptions since getting going with Rocket Money. It's saving me a ton of money on a monthly and annual basis. I had a couple of streaming services I had completely forgotten that I had signed up for. My wife and I also realized that, whoa, we're each signed up for the same streaming service. Don't need to both double down on that. So one of us canceled one of those. you'll just be surprised at how much money you're spending on things that you literally don't even use. And we all need to stay on top of our finances, our budget, especially if you're like me. You got a house mortgage, you got a 20-month-old, which comes with a lot of bills. Scale back on your spending, stay on top of your budgets, and just kind of daily, like easy financial app. I like it better than any banking app I've ever used. So check out Rocket Money today. RocketMoney.com/Bears now. They've saved their customers $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Tons of other features, like I mentioned, including checking your credit score. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Links in the comments and in the description. It's RocketMoney.com/Bears now to sign up and download the app today. Okay, latest on the coaching search. Anthony Weaver interviewed this morning. That is the Bears' third completed interview as the Dolphins' defensive coordinator has knocked that out. So they have met virtually with Mike Vrabel, of course, the former Titans head coach. He was a consultant with Cleveland this year. Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing. I saw some rumors on Twitter, who knows if they're true or not, that interview went badly. So who knows? But I never really took him seriously regardless as a head coaching candidate. And then Anthony Weaver finished his as well. So as far as where it goes from here, Mike Kafka, Pete Carroll, according to the reports, interviewing today as well. I would say that Carroll one is one to monitor. I don't really view Kafka as a serious candidate at this point. Obviously, he's got the connection to Poles from his time with the Chiefs. He played at Northwestern, so there are some connections there, but I just don't think his qualifications stack up with a lot of these other candidates that the Bears are interviewing at this point in time. We're trying to get to 113,000 subscribers here on the channel. We're so close. We're 148 away. Let's keep this thing rolling. Full coverage every day. It's 100% free. We don't charge a dime. We appreciate your love, your support. Spread the word to all of your Bears friends, and let's get this channel across 113,000. Okay, speaking of Pete Carroll, Richard Sherman hopped on Up and Adams with Kay Adams and was asked straight up, should the Bears hire Pete Carroll? He said, yeah, I think the Bears should hire him. I think he's going to get a coaching job just because he's a culture builder. Everyone has gotten this cutesy mindset of offensive genius, defensive genius, and they have forgotten about building culture of a team. He's built with young quarterbacks. He's built with quarterbacks that people have thrown away. He's had success building defense. All the pieces are there for him to be successful. Obviously, Pete Carroll is a good football coach. Obviously, he had a great run in Seattle. Well above 500, won a Super Bowl, should have won another one, 5 division titles, several other playoff appearances, 10 playoff wins, 10-9 overall, which if you're above 500 in the playoffs, that's a very, very good mark. I've said it since the Christmas Day report dropped from Adam Schefter. A, they should interview him, and B, he's a good fallback option. We know he would reset the culture in Chicago, which is something that is needed. We know that his floor is, probably at least hovering around 500, which is an improvement. He is 73. Can he put together a staff to contend for deep playoff runs in the NFC? He's obviously well connected. It makes me nervous given his age. And at the end of Seattle, it was kind of like they were ready to push him out, their fan base. Like, he was still doing a decent job, but I don't know, man. It kind of tells me a lot about where you are as a franchise. Like, if you have to hire Pete Carroll, it's like we have either A, so little faith that we can pick the right guy, or B, we swung and missed on our top guys because no one wanted to come here, that we had no choice but to hire Pete Carroll. Again, he'd be a good fallback option. He would be a floor raiser. But if you can't do better than 73-year-old Pete Carroll, that's kind of an indictment on the Bears franchise. Wouldn't mind it, but certainly wouldn't view it as a home run. Would you be happy with Pete Carroll? Y for yes, N for no. Give me your take in the comment section below. I would be kind of, it's fine, but certainly wouldn't love it. Give us your thoughts on that. Okay, real quick news item here from Albert Breer. Ian Cunningham has been requested to interview for the Titans general manager opening. He was a finalist there 2 years ago when they hired Rand Carthon, who just got fired a couple of days ago. And Breer has the note. He's got a relationship with their president, Chad Brinker. As you guys know, or if you don't, if Ian Cunningham were to get a GM job, the Bears would get 2 third-round compensatory draft picks as a upward move for a minority candidate to become a GM. So we'll see if that happens. Obviously, that would help you get more draft capital. He's been Ryan Poles' lieutenant here. He came from Philly. Some people say he's he's probably better than Poles. Who knows? But he's been well respected. He's been in the mix for GM jobs the last couple of years. We'll have to wait and see if this is the one for him. All right, that's going to do it for Chicago Bears Now. Continue to support the channel. We appreciate it. Daily content here on this channel for free. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, like the video. See you next time. Bear down. All right. Would you be happy with Pete Carroll? More no's than yeses, but close to 50-50 in the chat.
Yeah.
You're a Seahawks fan, Cullen.
That I am. And I love Pete. I just don't think that he should be a head coach really for any NFL team, to be honest, because you said it, you nailed it on the head. He is the most probably energetic 73-year-old I've ever seen in my life, but I just don't think for the long-term future that you hope to build with Caleb Williams, even for Pete's standards, that's just not who you're hoping for. Like if you're a Bears fan, you got to think, okay, regardless of how you feel, you drafted this guy number 1 overall. You want to ideally pair him for the next 10, 15, hell, maybe even 20 years, who knows, but I just don't think Pete has the runway that you're looking for with that. Not saying he'd be a bad coach or anything. Love Pete, but
I mean, best case with Pete, he gives you like 4 or 5 years, gets you to a competitive standpoint, retires and leaves you in a good spot to hire like the long-term guy after that.
Right.
Like he'd be like a transition coach if that made sense. Like, hey, this thing's in shambles. I'm going to clean it up, get this team back to being a playoff contender. Probably not a Super Bowl contender, but a playoff contender. And in like 4 years, I'll hand it off to someone else. That's kind of how I would view it. It's not the worst thing, but again, even if that happens, you'd still be talking about Caleb's third head coach and like by year 5 or whatever, assuming he's the quarterback by then. So again, if fallback option, okay, but you should be able to identify and get someone in here that has a chance to be a long-term answer. Just saying. Paleo, I think the Bears are too cheap to fly Vrabel in. I hope that's not the case, but that's pretty sad if it is. Pretty sad if it is. It's like, come on, man. If you're serious about Pete's almost dead, bro.
Okay, let's.
I mean, I don't think he's almost dead, but he's old. He's 73. He's a young 73.
Yeah, he's on. It's safe to say he's on the back 9, but come on now.
I mean, I think he could coach, like, if he were to get the job, energy level-wise, because it's a taxing job, he could do it into his late 70s. But he's obviously not a 10-year option.
No.
Like, you're probably talking 5-6 years at most.
Right.
So, that's a long time in the NFL, but
That it is.
Still.
But yeah, we got a mailbag coming up here. Use #Bears. Could be anything from who's Harry's top 5 head coach candidates. Could be, do you think Ian Cunningham gets hired by the Titans? Whatever coach or whatever question you guys have. Use #Bears to get in on our mailbag, which will be coming up here shortly.
Yeah, fire away. #Bears Super Chat, coaching search questions, free agency, trades, whatever the case may be.
We got some Super Chats, but we actually have no #Bears questions. So
there's one from Philip.
There we go.
Like that's the first one.
There we go.
Tom Brady up next for the head coach interview. Nah, he's running the Raiders, it sounds like. He is running the Raiders, it sounds like. Yeah, I'll be curious to see. I mean, you got to think Brady's presence is the reason Ben Johnson's doing an interview with Vegas, right? Like, if it's just Mark Davis, is he taking that interview? I doubt it.
I wouldn't put it past Mark Davis to do something like that, but yeah, I feel what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it was reported that Johnson's going to be selective,
right,
even with interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think Brady, his influence, convinced Johnson's camp to do an interview. Like, if Mark Davis calls, it's like, hey, Ben Johnson, you want to interview with us? Even though our roster's a joke, we don't have a quarterback, and we keep firing coaches after, like, 18 months. Probably not.
Right.
Probably not.
I would agree.
All right, looks like we have a decent amount in there. #Bears, Super Chat. If you Super Chat, you jump to the top of the line. We'll take your mailbag questions, and then we'll have one more segment before we get out of here on a Thursday. All right. Fire those questions away. We will answer as many of them as we possibly can here on Chicago Bears Now. Our first question on today's Bears Now mailbag is from Bear Down Brother. He asks, who is the best option after Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel? It's a good question. I've gotten this DM a lot. I've seen your guys' questions in the comments, the live chat. Like, who's number 3? Hypothetical. Vrabel goes to Vegas, Johnson goes to New England. Or Vrabel goes to New England, Johnson goes to Jacksonville. Who's that number 3 guy? Well, first of all, I want to hear from you guys. Who would you say is number 3 on that list? I think the answer is there's probably 3 to 5 guys that would be in that discussion. The Brian Flores, Cliff Kingsbury's. I would have Liam Cohen in that mix, but as we're filming this mailbag on Thursday, he hasn't even been on the interview request list. Is a Pete Carroll, a Mike McCarthy in there? We'll see what happens in Dallas. By the time you watch this, he might already be re-upped in Dallas, so keep that in mind. I'm sure I'm missing. Todd Monken, I think, would be in that conversation as well. I think you have a clear top 2 with Vrabel and Johnson, whatever order. I've got Johnson 1, Vrabel 2. But then you've probably got anywhere from 4 to 6 guys that you could argue is that number 3 guy. Josh Baratish. Hey, Harrison, any thoughts on Javon Hargrave? Yeah, so Javon Hargrave is going to get cut by the 49ers. They're going to post June 1, designate him, but he'll get cut at the start of the new league year, so he'll be free to sign with the team in free agency. I'm definitely interested. I think the Bears were interested 2 years ago when he signed with San Francisco. They gave him a huge contract. He's coming off, I think it's a torn ACL, so I think he's probably going to have to sign like a 1-year deal, but add him to the mix on this defensive line, get Billings back and healthy. I certainly would not be opposed to that whatsoever. That last year he had in Philadelphia, he was an absolute stud. So I like Hargrave. A little older now, coming off an injury, but I don't know, 1 year, $10 million bucks. Certainly could do a lot worse with that. Lacora is the Salah train over. I don't like this 3-4 form. Well, he's actually kind of multiple. He does some 4-down fronts as well. It does feel like, though, he's interviewing for the Jags head coaching job. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, I think he's back in San Francisco. That's already been reported that they're trying to bring him back. So he's comfortable there. He knows a lot of the personnel there. If he doesn't get a head coaching gig, I would expect him to reunite with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Subscribe to the channel. We got full coverage of the Bears coaching search, updates, news, rumors, everything else surrounding this football team all off season long, daily content here on the channel. So hit that sub button and turn on those notifications. William Bomer, would Najee Harris be a good fit for this team next to Swift? I like Najee. My thing is like, I feel like you can find a physical runner like Najee with a little more explosiveness in the draft. Like Najee Harris, I'm not going to say you have to break the bank for him, but it might be like $6-7 million bucks. You're already paying Swift $8 million. So let's say even you get him at a reasonable price, $6 million. So you're kind of staggering those two guys as your 1-2, $14 million. Like, I'd rather just draft a guy in the 3rd round. He's making $1.8 million bucks, and your 2 running backs are combined making less than $10 million. That's kind of my thought. I like Najee as a player. I think he has some limitations, but I think you've already paid a guy $8 million. I'm not trying to pay another guy $6 to $8. Ricky Ricardo, would you bring back Vic Fangio as DC? Well, that's not an upward move, so the only way you could do that is A, if Philly let him out of this contract, or B, I'll throw a crazy scenario out there. If the Eagles lost to Green Bay this weekend and fired Sirianni, new coaching staff in there, Fangio would free up, but that's a very small chance. Even if they lose, they're probably bringing back Sirianni. So unless Philly let him out of his contract, I don't think Fangio is really attainable because the Eagles can just block any interview request for him. All right, we are sponsored by Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go to a comedy show? Do you want to go to a sporting event to go watch your favorite teams play? Use the feature Game Time Picks, which will filter out the fluff of thousands of tickets to make your process of buying tickets a whole lot easier. Game Time is my go-to place to get tickets online because it's very easy. It's got all-in pricing, views from the seats. You can search by venue, team, and a whole lot other categories. like I said, that feature game time picks, it's going to narrow down your search. That way you're not scrolling through thousands of tickets on certain events. Makes it a whole lot easier. You can take advantage of their super deals, which is kind of the best bang for your buck on quality seats within the venue. Sometimes you get little discounts as well if you're on the app at the right time. You can pay with your Venmo balance, which is awesome as well. A lot of cool features with Game Time, views from the seats, curated deals as well, event cancellation protection. Also, check out Game Time today. Download the app, create an account, use code ChatSports, all one word, ChatSports, to get $20 off your first purchase only. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It's Game Time. Download the app today. Trade Rolly 4. Did the front office really not fly out Vrabel? They did a virtual interview. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Doesn't matter. I would say I don't think you could label it a good thing. Is it more likely that it's a bad thing or it's a probably doesn't matter thing? Probably doesn't matter, but I would have flown him in. Like, impress the guy, woo the guy. Even if he's not your number one, he's got to be in your top 3. Is it some massive mistake? No. I mean, if the Patriots want him, he's probably going to go there regardless, but still, I would have certainly liked to bring him into the building. All right, Mitt Romney. Is there a reason you don't seem overly concerned with Brian Flores and Tua's relationship? To me, that's an auto DQ. I've said that multiple times. Not that it's a DQ, but that if you don't feel comfortable in that vetting process, both with him and talking to other people who were around that situation, ex-players on that team, assistants, if Flores doesn't sell you that he's learned from that situation, you can't hire him. I think I've said that on multiple occasions. I'm just saying, if you do sign off from that, he's been with Mike Tomlin and Kevin O'Connell the last 3 years. If you feel comfortable that he's grown in that regard, I think he's got a lot of good qualities as a coach. I love his defensive style. I love his no BS style. But if you don't think he can connect with Caleb Williams, and if you don't think he can bring in the right offensive coordinator for Caleb Williams, it is a non-starter. But if you do check those boxes, then I do think he's a good candidate. So that's my take on that. Name a coach that you don't want the Bears to hire. Like, for example, Brian Flores. If he's not someone you want. I will say this. I saw a clip from Ryan Fitzpatrick recently talking about how over the course of time in Miami, at first he was the super cool guy. Everyone got along with him, and by the end, it felt like a dictator situation. That is not what you want. There's a difference between being a hard-nosed, hardcore coach, an ass kicker, and a dictator guy, someone who alienates assistant coaches and players. You can't have that. So, again, if you're uncomfortable, if you're the Bears, you can't hire him. It's pretty simple. Eamon Elias, thoughts on taking Abdul Carter or James Pierce over O-line in round 1? I mean, if Abdul Carter falls to 10, that's that's going to be hard to turn down. I don't think he gets to 10. James Pierce could, the Tennessee edge rusher. Yeah, I mean, if they're higher on your board than offensive linemen, then yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable. You need to add trenches players, period. O-line and D-line. Just if you don't go O-line in round 1, you better have a plan to attack O-line, whether that was earlier in free agency or on day 2 of the draft. So, it's always a combination of your needs and your big board. But, yeah, I mean, if they ended up with Abdul Carter, I definitely wouldn't complain. Jerome, do you really think Ben Johnson wants to remain in the NFC North or go elsewhere? I don't know. I mean, I think he's just looking for organization structure that he wants, and a quarterback that he wants. I don't think he's crazy concerned with where or who the team is. I think it's more of, am I comfortable entering this situation? So I think that's what's most important. Like, who do I report to? What's my working relationship like with Ryan Poles or whoever? Like, he wants to feel comfortable with those things and check those boxes. So if he comes into the building, feels good about Poles, likes the setup, I think he'll be very interested in the job. If he doesn't, he won't. I don't think it's going to be like, well, I love everything about the Bears setup, but NFC North is tough, and my buddy Dan Campbell's in Detroit. If anything, he would probably have some comfort in the NFC North because he is coaching the NFC North for several years now. So I don't think that part of it matters too much. Now, maybe it's a tiebreaker. Like if he feels equally as good about the Bears and the Jags have a much easier division, well, that could be a tiebreaker. But if not, then I think he would just pick the situation he likes better. All right, that's going to do it for this mailbag episode. If you have any more questions, hit me up on social media at HGramNFL on Twitter and on Instagram. More questions can be answered over there. DMs are always wide open. You can find more content from me over there as well at HGramNFL. All right, name a coach you don't want the Bears to hire. Let's hear it. Kafka from Jaron Thomas.
It's a pretty safe one.
I'll crash out if it's Petzing or Kafka.
Anthony Weaver.
49ers announced interviews with Robert Saleh and Lions DB's coach Deshae Townsend for their DC.
Honestly, if David Shaw were to somehow become the Bears head
that
coach,
would be brutal.
that one would be very
Seahawks
interesting.
have requested Clint Kubiak.
They're doing their due diligence.
Yeah.
They are.
Bring back Waldron. How many of the guys that the Bears interviewed for OC last year are the Seahawks going to interview this year?
It's a great
Now,
question.
some of them were already on staffs, but Clint
Right.
Kubiak, Thomas Brown. Now, the Saints can block Kubiak, technically, for now.
Right.
But without a head coach, I bet they'll let him interview.
Yeah. I honestly don't like, and again, obviously watch Thomas Brown the last half of the season. I don't really mind them at least bring him in as an interview because I don't think he ever got a full chance to show, like, his offense.
Also, when he was just focused on calling plays, even though it wasn't his playbook, it went pretty well. The
Right.
3 games when he was in the booth, and that wasn't with his offense. So
Mm.
I actually think as an OC candidate, he's decently strong. McVay guy. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. Matthew Charles Eberflus.
Bring Flus back as DC. Let's do it. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, man.
And Chris Morgan, you just can't get rid of him.
Get Chris Morgan out of the building, please. If Ben Johnson wants to keep Chris Morgan, he's off. I no longer want Ben Johnson. I think I'm serious, but gosh. All right. Let's do one more segment, and then we will get out of here. Appreciate you guys tuning in a little bit earlier here on a Thursday. If you guys have any more super chats, we'll answer those after this segment, so go ahead and fire those in. Could the Chicago Bears trade for this current head coach? We're going to dive into that next here on Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham, so stay tuned for that. Before we dive in, these are some reasons why you should subscribe to the channel. Coaching search coverage, daily updates on that. Until they have a coach, we will continue to plug away on that. Then we'll shift into free agency mode, draft, as well as we get into the later months. We'll have some early videos on that later this month as well. Just daily news, trade rumors that are circulating around this team. 2+ live shows per week, every Monday and Thursday. And then in major breaking news situations, we're on the door of 113,000 subscribers. Let's make it happen. All right, let's talk about Mike Tomlin. Could the Bears trade for the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach this offseason? Of course, Pittsburgh preparing to play the Baltimore Ravens on Saturday night. ESPN's Mike Greenberg floated this out there on Get Up the other day. I'd kind of been hinting at it as well. As the Steelers have kind of struggled down the stretch, just kind of wondering if that situation could get interesting in Pittsburgh. Here's what Greeny had to say. There is no team in the NFL that needs a culture more than the Chicago Bears. The Bears should offer anything it takes to see if the Steelers would be willing to trade them Mike Tomlin and then just hand him the franchise. While he's mostly right here, I think the whole trade anything it takes is a bit much. Like, I'll just say it straight up. If the Steelers want 2 first-round picks for Mike Tomlin, I'm not doing that. Like, I just think that Mike Tomlin's a great coach. We're going to outline why I would like to have him in Chicago, but multiple first-round picks. Like, to me, if the Steelers are willing to trade Mike Tomlin and Tomlin is agreeable to it, like, it kind of lowers the value, because Pittsburgh's already signaling like, hey, we're trying to go in a new direction. So I'm willing to trade a decent pick for Mike Tomlin. Multiple first, though, I don't know. How about 1 first? Would you trade 1 first-round pick for Mike Tomlin? I'd rather trade like a second-round pick if I'm being completely honest. but you guys weigh in. 1 first-round pick for Mike Tomlin. Why for yes, in for no. Would you pull the trigger on a trade for Mike Tomlin if it cost you a first-round pick? I'd think about it for 1 first. If it was anything more than that, it's an absolute no. Okay, would Pittsburgh trade him? I think if the Steelers lose to Baltimore on Saturday, especially if it's one-sided, that there will be some chatter because that would be 5 straight losses to end the year for Pittsburgh. And in a lot of those games, not be very competitive at all. And don't forget, there was real chatter at the end of last season that maybe it's just time. Maybe after 17 years, now 18 years, that it's time for a split between Tomlin and Pittsburgh. Look, all great runs come to an end. Andy Reid in Philadelphia, they had an awesome run. They eventually just said, you know what, we're going to go in a new direction. We wish you well. You're obviously going to get a second head coaching gig somewhere else. Maybe Pittsburgh looks at this the same, like, hey, like, we've been stuck in this 9-10 win range for a while, Mike. We're just going to reset here. We're going to try to go in a new direction. But if you're open to it, we'd like to trade you to a team that is very interested, and maybe the Bears would be that team. My take, I do think Tomlin rumors ramp up if they lose. If they lose to Baltimore on Saturday, you will see chatter on shows, potentially with reporting, that Mike Tomlin getting traded somewhere, potentially the Bears, could be a very, very real possibility. Now, coming up, I'm going to take a look at some pros and cons of what Mike Tomlin brings to the table as an NFL head coach. But I do want to tell you guys first about our awesome sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that will help you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, manage your budget, and also negotiate to lower bills by up to 20%. Let's talk about that for a little bit. You can lower your bills by up to 20% sometimes with Rocket Money by uploading your bill to the Rocket Money app, and they are going to do their best to find you a better price. You may have to switch cell phone companies. You may have to switch electric companies, but your bill could go from $100 to $80 potentially. Let Rocket Money surf for those opportunities for you. All you got to do, upload those bills to the app, and they are going to find the best opportunity for you. Lots of awesome features with Rocket Money. Beyond that, you can stay on top of your credit score. You can cancel your subscriptions you no longer want with clicking just a couple of buttons, streaming services, whatever it is. If you want to scale back on your spending, they are going to help you do it. If you use Rocket Money's fullest features, you can save up to $740 per year. Think about what you could do with an extra $700. You could go on a vacation. You could start a college fund. You could go on several nice meals. You could pay them, half your month's rent 1 month. Whatever the case may be, get started with Rocket Money at rocketmoney.com/bears. Now, appreciate that. Go check it out today. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Rocket Money is going to help you stay on top of your finances and just basic financial stuff, too. I like it better than any banking app I've ever used. rocketmoney.com/bears now. Link is in the comments and in the description. Download and get started today by using our link. Okay, let's get to the pros and cons of hiring Mike Tomlin from a Chicago Bears standpoint. We'll start with the pros. Number one, and again, these are overused phrases, but it's true. Culture setter, leader. Like, this would be a guy walking into your building that you quite frankly haven't had since at least Lovie Smith and potentially since Mike Ditka. He would come in and completely bring a new energy and just a new standard. And I think the word standard is always more important. Like, hey, we're not going to let shit slide. You're late to a meeting. That's not going to fly. We're going to have a very high standard, and if you don't meet it, you're not going to be here. It's as simple as that. So he would bring that to the table right away. Number two, he's a very high floor coach. What does that mean? That means that the guy's never gone below 500. He's had a couple of 8-8 seasons when there was still a 16-game schedule, but his floor is essentially 9-8. Now, could that change? Of course. Like, it's not like he's not bulletproof. He, of course, could have a sub-500 season, but despite having pretty bad QB play for years now, this year was a little better with Russell Wilson and then Fields for a few games. They've still found a way. Like, the last 2 years, they won 9 games in 10 games with the combination of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. I'm not sure many other coaches could have done that. So he elevates your floor significantly. Like, we've talked about Mike Vrabel as like the safe floor raiser coach. I think Tomlin is even higher than that in terms of raising the floor, in terms of what, the minimum success rate would be. Obviously, he's won a Super Bowl. Been a while. It's back in 2008. Won a Super Bowl. Went to a second one, correct, against the Packers? Yeah, they lost to the Packers a couple years later, Super Bowl 45. So he's been to two, won one, multiple AFC championship games as well. He's won the division 7 times, which, think about that division since he's been there. Cincinnati, both with Andy Dalton and now Joe Burrow, has had several good teams. The Ravens have always been a factor. And even Cleveland a few times has been really good. That's been, I would say, consistently since he's been there, probably the toughest division in the NFL. Now, obviously, the NFC North is now very tough, but I like that. He's coming from a tough division with tough divisional games, physical division, by the way, which the NFC North is as well. Like, he feels like a guy that would fit in well in Chicago with what this division has been over time. Now, obviously, the skill talent in the NFC North is much better than it's ever been, but it's still a very physical division. All right, let's get to some cons. Well, he hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years. It's a long time. Now, again, he's probably only had one playoff game since then where he had Big Ben at a high level. Think about the quarterbacks he's been trotting out there for these playoff games. Kenny Pickett. I think Mason Rudolph started the game last year. Big Ben started a couple at the end of his career where he could barely throw the ball downfield. So, like, again, it's kind of a, double-edged sword where it's like, yeah, he hasn't won a playoff game in a while, but he's had the worst quarterback in pretty much all these games. So that makes it pretty difficult. Number 2, this one is legitimate. The recent OC hires haven't been great. Now, on paper, an Arthur Smith hire is pretty good. So I don't think anyone's ripping him for that hire, but like Matt Canada, I mean, that's a joke. Matt Canada is not an NFL offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith obviously has lost some juice. He needs a good offensive line and power run game to be successful. They thought with Najee Harris they could make that work, but their offensive line isn't nearly good enough. Obviously, the Bears have work to do up front. So if you did get Tomlin, I probably would not want Arthur Smith, if I'm being completely honest, to come with him. But that would be something you would have to factor in, the ability to bring in an OC. And then, is this on him, the GM combination? Who knows? But it kind of ties into number 2 is they've really struggled to get good offensive linemen in there. Now, they hit on Zach Frazier, the center out of West Virginia last year, but Broderick Jones, first-round pick, not good. Dan Moore hasn't been very good. They signed James Daniels from the Bears. That was a good signing for them a couple years ago. He got hurt this year, but they've struggled to draft high-end offensive linemen and develop them. That has not been a strength of theirs. Now, I don't know how much player personnel control Tomlin has in the offseason, so it's hard to say if that's on him or not. But, there's been some offensive struggles, especially in recent years in Pittsburgh. My overall take, and I already mentioned it, is the floor is incredibly high. I mean, you bring him in here, you're going to win a lot of games. Now, are you a Super Bowl favorite? Are you the best team in the NFC North with them? Probably not. There's still a gap to bridge there. But if you're telling me right now Mike Tomlin's the coach of this team, like, I'd be pretty excited. The credibility alone he would bring into your building would be pretty damn good. So that is definitely noteworthy. Now, completely different situations here when you compare these two guys. Who would you rather have? The proven 18-year head coach who's never had a losing season, but in recent years hasn't been able to get over the hump into the playoffs, Mike Tomlin, defensive guy? Or would you rather take the massive swing in Ben Johnson? Complete unknown as a head coach, but has a damn good resume as a play caller. He's put in his time in Detroit, been a part of winning in Detroit, a place that hadn't won in a long time. In a vacuum, you'd be like, why would anyone say Ben Johnson? But if you're hell-bent on offensive guy, I certainly can understand that. I think for me, it would depend on the trade cost. If you're telling me it would cost multiple firsts, I'd just get Johnson. But for a team that we have ripped time and time again for the inability to get the coaching hire right, we know Mike Tomlin's a good coach. So, you'd probably have to lean Tomlin because of that. Now, Ben Johnson's the more sexy, higher ceiling guy if it did work, but he's more likely to flame out than Mike Tomlin. So, it's an interesting discussion. All I know is this, is if the Steelers lose on Saturday, I think this is going to be a real story in the NFL. Not even necessarily just the Bears, but could the Steelers be moving on from Tomlin? I think that story will start to circulate starting on Sunday if they lose on Saturday to Baltimore. All right, that's going to do it for Chicago Bears Now coaching search. It's always something. A lot of juice, a lot of rumors out there. We will continue to navigate through those here on this channel. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys soon. I'm warming up to Pete Carroll. Yeah, I mean, I think Tomlin, there's another guy to compare. I think Tomlin and Pete Carroll have similar resumes. One guy's 18 years younger, though. So, I'd rather have Tomlin. Now, again, if you're having to trade a lot, that changes things. But, yeah, those are both floor raiser guys. How high is their ceiling as defensive guys at this point in their careers? Fair question. I mean, if you're running the Bears, Colin, you can get Tomlin for a second-round pick. You doing that, or are you hiring Johnson?
Heartbeat. Give me Tomlin.
Yeah, I think you have to, just because you can't afford to screw this up. You know Tomlin at bare minimum is going to have you being competitive.
I think he's just a grown-up. He would establish things. I mean, he would, people in the media always love to say that organization, oh, it's just a terrible organization. Like, why would somebody go there and everything? Tomlin would be the type of guy that would change the outlook on Chicago Bears football.
He strikes me as someone who would take on that challenge. So, we'll see, man. I really do think if they lose to the Ravens, especially if it's one-sided, you're gonna hear Steelers divorce rumors circulate. I really do. I love Ben Johnson, but unless you're having to trade the house for Tomlin, I think if you can get him for a reasonable cost, that'd be pretty tough to turn down. I really do. If you get second-round pick, you got 39 and 41. Trade one of those picks for Tomlin, I'm in.
I'd say Tomlin, to me, when he is coaching his A game, I mean, you could argue him as top 5 guy.
He maximize. He gets as
insane.
Much as you He gets so much out of his teams. So, all right, we are gonna get out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Tomlin to Chicago's cap. No one's saying it's happening. I'm saying if they lose Saturday, there's going to be rumors of Tomlin's future in Pittsburgh. I promise you that. You're already hearing it. So we'll see what happens there. If they were to beat Baltimore, I think that completely goes to rest because Pittsburgh's outlook coming into this year was this is the year it falls apart under Tomlin, and they've won 10 games. But if it ends with 5 straight losses, it's kind of well, that's kind of what people thought, that this thing could fall apart a little bit this year. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate Cullen for rocking and rolling with us. We'll be live on Sunday for Eagles-Packers watch party. We'll be cheering against Green Bay. FGB in the comments. You guys know what to do. We'll see you guys then. Bear down.